Our special guest tonight is Troy Ellis. He is running for Congress for District 10 of New Jersey, not through the Democratic Party, not through the Republican Party, but through a new movement that him and fellow comrades have put together called We Are Thor. Let's go ahead and bring in Troy Ellis. Troy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's been a while.
Welcome back. So for people who may not have seen you here last time, you came onto the show before and you were talking about a contract and people running for office and actually being held accountable for what they say they're going to do. You're a part of this movement called We Are Thor. Can you explain to everyone what that movement is about?
Yeah, so We Are Thor stands the hope of the revolution. And pretty much everybody can relate to contracts. Like you sign a contract for your cell phone, you want to get a house loan, you sign a contract, you rent a car. Everything that you do is regulated by contracts, and there's always consequences if you don't fulfill it. The only profession that doesn't allow you or doesn't have to sign a contract is a politician. And I think it's the most common sense thing to do is to sign a contract with your constituents saying, I'm going to do certain things. And if I don't do it, then I have to sign or I have to pay back all my campaign donations out of my own pocket and resign at the end of your term. So they say the first one through the door gets the bloodiest, and I'm going to be the first one through the door in New Jersey, the 10th district. I'm going to run as an independent, and I am going to sign a contract with my constituents explaining everything that I'm going to do. For example, force the vote. That's going to be in the contract. My very first day, I'm going to put Medicare for all, limit college credit, medical debt, the massive veteran benefits, make college, trade schools, and public universities free, and reparations in the hopper the very first day. So
wow. So because this is, I think, some of the concerns that some of us had with members of the squad, where they said that they were going to fight for like Medicare for all, for example, and I know we'll get into that. But they said they were going to fight for those progressive issues. And what we found is that they pretty much cowered to Democrat leadership. And there seemed to be no way to hold them accountable, because once they were in Congress, that was kind of it. And they did not sign a contract. So you're saying this particular movement, you want politicians to sign a contract so that they are held accountable for what they campaign on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to see the mainstream media ask Bernie Sanders if he would sign a contract. Or how about AOC? If she actually really wants to run for president, sign a contract. You know, this new guy in Detroit seems very good. He's got a good commercial. I forget his name. Ask him if he'll sign a contract. I mean, it's the simplest thing. I don't understand why this hasn't come up in the past, or why someone hasn't thought of it. To me, it's the most common sense thing. So
I think it makes a lot of sense. I want to show everybody the website here. Again, it's wearethor.org. Eric, you can put the link for that in the chat for people. We can do it together. Join our revolution. So they have a website set up here. They were labeled terrorists and traitors, so they became rebels and then became our founding fathers of the United States, the hope of the revolution. We are Thor. We are very angry. We are not alone, and we are just getting started. We are a group of military veterans who have a majority of registered Democrats and some Republicans within our group. Our organization is over 415,000 strong. It has to start somewhere, with someone, with some cause that ignites us to become united. So how did this come about, Troy? How did you guys get together and decide to start this?
Well, I work for a traveling nurses company, so I get to go all over the country for 13 weeks or more. So I actually get to sit down, go to restaurants, the mall, the different American Legions, VFWs, and talk to these veterans, talk to people. And it's the same thing across the country, whether you're red or blue. Healthcare is a problem. Credit card debt is a problem. The thing that they try to divide us on, and you got to remember, there are 16 million veterans in this country, and that's a huge voting block. Okay. And it just came out. We were talking one night and we said, well, what needs to be done? I mean, I was disappointed with Obama. I voted for him. Sadly disappointed. Bernie got me reignited into politics, and that really just, I can understand how people lose hope so easily You know, you get so fired up and passionate, and then you get deflated like a balloon. But I can't stand by anymore. Something has to be done. As a veteran, as a Christian, as a human being, what's happening in the world, I just can't say, I can't sit on the sideline anymore, especially what's happening in Israel, Gazans. I mean, it's unbelievable that we stand by as a society and let this happen. I'm sorry, that's my dog Thor. The movement was named after my dog.
So this is very interesting. So you sent me.
Sorry. Come here.
Oh, go ahead.
No. Come here.
Puppy.
Come on, buddy. Come here, buddy. It's okay. Come here. Oh,
Hi, puppy. Oh.
He's very passionate about the issues too.
So you sent me 5 points that you wanted to discuss out of the 13. The first one is Medicare for all. So let's hear about that, because I'm starting to notice now I'm not hearing, well, with the exception of Bernie reintroducing the Medicare for all bill again, which I think, again, we all know that's not going to pass. Republican House, Republican Senate. I would say it is performative at this point. But other than that, I'm noticing people aren't saying Medicare for all as much anymore. Some people are now starting to say just lower prescription drugs, or they're saying a public option. Why did you choose that one?
Medicare for all?
Yeah.
Common sense. It's all or nothing. I mean, this idea about compromising anymore? No way. No. Medical debt is $220 billion. It affects over 100 million Americans, 57 million households. Now, the numbers for what Medicare for all would cost differs. I went kind of in the middle. They say 35 trillion over 10 years. It's a huge number, right? How do you pay for it? And I know we're going to talk about, the veteran benefits and free college. And the one thing that always comes up is, how do you pay for it? It's very simple. Bernie had it right when he said 0.5% Wall Street tax speculation. Awesome. But forget 0.5%. If they were so against 0.5%, what do you think they're going to do with an 8.5% over 10 years, and then bring it down in the next 10 years to 7.5, and then a permanent 6.5 tax? It pays for everything. It wipes out our national debt also. I mean, not one tax dollar would be raised. So I'm sorry, I'm getting off, but back to Medicare for all. I'm sorry, it's all or nothing. I will not compromise. When they see me in the halls of Congress, they should turn the other way, because I am not their friend. I'm not looking to make friends with them. I am there for the constituents of District 10, and pretty much for all Americans. So.
Yeah, Medicare for all is a really big one for me, because there's so many other industrialized countries in the world that have it, or they call it universal health care, similar aspect here, and the United States does not. And it's false that we can't afford to have it. We can afford to have it. There is money being spent in this country, I would say, in the wrong places. I think the defense budget is way too high, over $850 billion. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. And it's continued to increase over the years. So I agree that we can have Medicare for all in this country. You mentioned force the vote as part of the contract. Were you shocked when the squad members decided not to force the vote for Medicare for all? What were you thinking during that point?
I was like, here we go again. I mean, we you get fooled once, okay, on me. Get fooled twice, okay, but fooled a third time? I mean, it gets a little bit frustrating, The squad was never going to fight. I actually went to Ilhan Omar's campaign manager and met with her in the prior election and offered her to do this contract. And she turned it down, of course. And she only won that election by, I believe, 2.5 percentage points. So now we're talking with that veteran that ran against her to sign this contract. Now, I would like to see Ilhan Omar, because out of all the squad members, I think she's the most, if you want to use the word honest, I guess. But I think this veteran is going to sign up with us on this contract. She won't get reelected.
Yeah, because for those who were not aware, her race was very close.
Mm-hmm.
She almost, didn't make it out of her primary. But so let me get this straight. So you approached her team to
Mm-hmm.
ask if she would sign this contract and she wouldn't do it?
Nope. No. They're all in it for themselves. I mean, the contract, look, I'm not a perfect person. I've made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, right? As you get older, you're supposed to want to do better. You should want people around you to be better, right? I'm not the perfect person, but this contract makes me the perfect candidate. And anybody that signs up for this, you are the perfect candidate. You don't have to be the perfect person anymore. You don't have to be like these people like, oh, look at my perfect family, look at my perfect dog, look at this. No, because a contract holds you accountable. People say that money runs the world. I disagree with that. It's the contract that makes you pay that money to the corporations. Everybody can relate. Every single, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green Party, whatever, we're all run by contracts.
Very interesting. Very interesting there. The second point that you have is eliminate college, credit card, and medical debt.
Mm-hmm.
Why those three things?
I think people deserve a second chance or a third chance. I can see where, like during COVID, your business was closed down, you couldn't go out, you couldn't work, so you had to put your food and your bills on credit card. It did not seem fair, especially when the credit card companies made their biggest profits in the history of credit card companies. It's unbelievable. So I believe giving the American people a second chance, like wipe it out completely. I'm not saying that, hey, if you want to charge your credit card up again, that's on you. This is a one-time deal to give you a second or third chance at making life better and helping your family out. So again, to me, this is common sense.
Yeah, you mentioned the pandemic, and I got to say, I'm in Massachusetts. Our state was locked down during the pandemic. I know a number of people that had to put their rent on their credit card, that had to put groceries on the credit card because they lost their jobs, or the company, the business that they worked for was laying people off like during that time. I think a lot of people don't realize, if you lived in a state, like my parents live in South Carolina, so they're way down there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their life for the most part didn't really change much. Like, yes, obviously like they had to wear masks at some point, but this was way after, like we were even like locked down here in Massachusetts, but their life went on as it continued. Like they weren't locked down. People were still going to the beach, etc.
Really?
The businesses and everything was still open. Like, yeah, they didn't shut the businesses down like they did in Massachusetts. And so I think that some people who lived in those states may not understand that for many of us that lived in the states that were locked down, if when the business is closed, especially if you worked for like a mom and pop business, you weren't getting paid, but you still had to pay rent. You still had to pay for groceries, And yes, the PPE loans came in. Some of them went to the right people. Some of them did not. Some of the governors didn't handle those phones.
There was a lot of fraud involved in that.
There was a lot of that. And there were some small businesses that for them, it was too late by the time that money came through and they did have to close. Even in a city here like Boston, which has a lot of tourism. We're talking about restaurants on that tourist strip on Boylston Street that have been around for years that had to close because of that. So I think a lot of people, if you were in a state that wasn't locked down, you may not realize what did people do? They went to their credit cards to pay for those things and to make those payments. So the credit card one is a big one. The medical debt one is another one where even if you do have a job and you have health insurance, that doesn't mean you're not going to have medical debt.
I just think it's the right thing to do. I think at some point we have to look in the mirror and say, I might be doing okay now, but what about next week? So my neighbor doesn't have what I have, but I want to help them. And again, not one tax dollar. So this is what I'm hoping the people, the constituents in District 10 will feel is that not any tax dollars is going to be raised for you, right? It's all going to come out of the Wall Street speculation in the 1%. All right. They made billions, trillions of dollars during the pandemic. I'm sure they can pay 6.5 Wall Street speculation. I don't think it's that big of a deal. So.
And I worked in the universities for over 10 years. And I can tell you, you mentioned eliminate college debt. These kids are not making the money to pay off these loans.
No, I personally, I don't have any credit card debt. I was brought up old school, is that if you don't have the money, you don't spend it. Now that's just me. I know a lot of the younger generation, it's all about credit card putting it, and it's easy to put it on a credit card. I mean, you go out and all of a sudden your bill's like $300, $400. You don't think about it because it's not coming out of your bank account. So my philosophy is a little different, and that just works for me. That's all.
I hear you. Another one that you mentioned here, and this is a big one in particular for me. I talk about it on the show a lot, which is reparations. And I gotta say, like, the only party that I know of that has that as a part of their platform, and it's been that way for years, has been the Green Party. Why do you have it a part of We Are Thor?
Simple. It's a debt owed. It's a debt that needs to be paid. No more said about it. I'm not an expert in it. I've looked at it online and watched different interviews, and it seems like people can't come to a consensus. Now, I do agree with the lineage. If I get elected into Congress, I will have a committee look into it. You come up with a bill, I'll put it in the hopper. My job as a congressman is to find a way to pay for it. I found a way to pay for it. Give me the bill, I'll put it in there. It's as simple as that for me.
It's so interesting that the Democratic Party refuses to make this a part of their platform, considering the fact that they depend on the Black vote in order to win, which is one of the reasons why Kamala Harris lost, because she received, lower support from Black voters than Biden, Hillary, and of course, Barack Obama. So it's just bizarre to me that they do not have that as a part of their platform. It does not make any sense to me.
Well, I've been talking some meetings. I'm in Minnesota right now, and I've been having some meetings with some of the upper echelon, richer people, the establishment, as you call it. And I always ask them, I said, why do you think that the 1% won't allow Medicare for all, or free college to pass? And every single one of them, their response is, it's money. And it's about winning. They don't want to lose. And at some point, it's almost like a gambler, right? Being a billionaire or a 1%er, it's all about win, 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 and becomes addicting. And that's all they think about. They don't think about the consequences for us, you, or for the peasants. It's not about that anymore. So
you're right. It's all about Wall Street. They love Wall Street. They can bail out Wall Street, but not the American people.
Let me ask you a question. One of the things that was tossed around is there has to be consequences, right? So I'm willing to take the consequence and sign a contract, but what about the voter? People always say that they vote against their own self-interest, and then you have the biggest block of voters is the non-voter. So how do you get them to vote? Now, this is outside of the box and it's controversial, but what if there were consequences to the voter? So everyone that voted for Trump in this last election, there are real life consequences to American citizens right now. So, for example, I'll just use Medicare for all. I'm not saying that this is going to be law, but it is something to be discussed. So let's say you have two candidates, right? And one says, I'm going to get Medicare for all, and I'm going to sign a contract for it. And the other one says, well, no. Well, if this candidate wins, then everyone that voted for them gets Medicare for all, and everybody that didn't doesn't. Not in saying that you won't get it, in the future, but for that 4 years, no. Why not? There has to be consequence. People have to be informed. And I know it sounds crazy. So what's your thought on that?
I personally don't agree with blaming the voter. Just because, again, most voters are informed by corporate media. And that's typically like what they know and what they believe to be true, although that is changing, and what they go by. I go back to Bernie 2020 and 2016, and I think about how many people were misled because corporate media said they're going to take your health care away and you're not going to have any health care. You know how many people fell for that? Like that was the interesting part. So I think that a lot of people, they do believe what is said on corporate media, a lot of the voters, but I don't think the voters should be punished. I do believe that the politicians should be held accountable if they agree, they run on these issues, and then they get into office and they vote for legislation or said legislation that goes against exactly what they campaigned on. I do think there should be accountability there. And I honestly think if we had that said accountability, I would say half of Congress probably wouldn't even be there. But because they wouldn't run. Because they wouldn't run in the first place.
No, but the contract is a simple breach of contract. So, for example, everyone that votes for me, right? And I go into Congress, and let's say I don't force the vote. So I do something that's against the contract. Okay, so it has to be a majority of the people that voted for me that then could recall me, right? And then I will resign and I'll pay back all the campaign donations. I mean, it is a tricky thing. They're working on the contract right now. A breach of contract is the simplest way to do it, to make it viable. Because then if you don't have a majority of people that are going to recall you, you'll have some nut job that will, I don't agree with you, whatever, you didn't do this. Right? Yeah.
I'm very much aware. And the last one I think that is also really important, make college, trade schools, and public universities free. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. I just think it's a natural progression of a society. Other countries in Europe have free college. I want to bring up Israel because, again, they have Medicare for all. They have free college. Our tax dollars are going towards that. I think we have enough problems here at home where we need to take problems here instead of the rest of the world right now. And college gives upper hand to a lot of Americans that can't afford it, that can, have a better life. So again, those 5 things that we're talking about, to me, they're just all common sense things that is supposed to make society better. And getting rid of the debt is just giving people a chance, another chance at life. So if we had all 5 of these things right now, we might not be worried about Israel or the war or these other things. I mean, if you go back when you're talking about the contract, if Obama had to sign a contract like this, then Roe versus Wade would have been codified. If Trump had to sign a contract like this, then the wall would have been built and we wouldn't be with this immigration problem right now. So again, to me, it's just common sense. There is one thing, like being a veteran, when you look at society, right? Like we fought, and you're from a military family, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we see things sometimes as black and white. And I just cannot believe what is going on, that society, we're regressing, and how do you stop that regression? I mean, somebody has to do something. Somebody has to put themselves up, to get bloodied. I can't be the only one. I'm hoping that other people will come up and have the courage and be noble and do the right thing and sign this contract. It's not going to be easy. They're going to come after. Look what they did to Bernie. They made AOC cry on the floor. Come on. This is not fighting. I guess if I have one wish, I wish people would wake up and not vote off of emotion, but vote off of what's right. And too many times do people vote with their emotion, or they vote because of their racism or because of their ignorance.
Or personality.
Or personality, correct. Like with Trump. My friend and I, we were talking about this, and he asked me, and we have these like late night conversations. He's out in New York right now. And we talk, he goes, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to put yourself out there? And my response, well, someone has to. And we started talking, and then, we were having a beer over the phone, and he goes, well, what are you willing to do? And I thought about it, and I said, wow, that's kind of a loaded question. And I thought, you know what? I'm willing to do almost anything. And then he asked, well, what would you do? And I said, well, what's the number one problem in District 10? Jeff Bezos is a huge problem. Amazon is a huge problem for my constituents. A lot of them go over to Staten Island and work in that warehouse over there. And I said, well, how do you stop them? And now this is, I said, if I could, I would fight him in a ring to the death. I would. That is what I'm willing to do for the constituents. And granted, I know it's a little crazy, but if we're in such a regression in this country, oh, well, I mean, if we're in the last stages of the Roman Empire, then I guess gladiator, having a fight to the death would be simple, right? It's like taking a chess piece off the board. Of course, he wouldn't do it because most billionaires they're another billionaire cowards. Billionaires always pay other people to do their things, right? They never do it themselves. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, right? He stole the idea for Facebook. My point is he would never do it, even though, and we looked at the numbers, don't laugh now. If there was a fight like this, it would raise $2 trillion to $6 trillion worldwide. That's an amazing number just to see two people fight to the death. But he wouldn't do it because the establishment couldn't allow, even if there's 1% chance that I would win, I would become the richest man in the world. I would get Medicare for all. I would go after the establishment. I would do everything possible. But that's not it. That wouldn't stop him either. You'd have to get what? It's illegal to fight to death. I remember back in the day, Las Vegas changed its rules just so they could have a fight one time. And I'm sorry, I'm going off. I'm just going from this conversation I had with my Army buddy, right? If Trump gave a pardon to the two people that were fighting, and you gave them like 0.5%, that's $20 billion. Trump could force. Do you know by executive order you can cancel government contracts?
I did not know that. Interesting.
So he could force people's hand to force, like he could go to Amazon and say, I'm going to cancel your contracts if you don't allow unions in the warehouse, or if you don't allow certain. He could cancel some. I forget the airline that just had trouble. Refresh my memory, Sabby.
Southwest, or I mean, there's a number of them that have had trouble. Delta.
Yeah, he could cancel their contracts, or at least threaten to cancel their contracts if they don't get their shit in order. It's just all one big mess. I mean, yeah. No, I hear you. Well, Troy, I think this is an interesting project. Where can people go to follow? Go to wearethor.org. There's going to be my website for the candidacy for the run for Congress. And again, I urge other people to look at this, and they can come up with their own contract for their own district. But I think it is the way forward. You talk about how you can't fight within the Democratic Party. That is so true. My other thing also, I'm sorry, someone should ask Jill Stein, because I know you and I both voted for the last presidential election, right?
Yep.
Someone should ask her if she would sign a contract and see how it works out in the next presidential election.
Well, I will be a part of a panel with her on Saturday, so I can ask her. I can ask her on Saturday. She probably would.
You think so?
She probably would.
I mean, I know a lot of people that would vote for her if she said, I mean, if you just made it simple, 5 things in the contract that this is what I'm going to do and do and do. I mean, the other thing for the Green Party is fine. You can do that as president, but those 5 things are what a majority on both sides of the aisle agree on. So I would love to see if she would sign a contract. I definitely vote for her. I know a lot of people that would vote for her again. And she could get past, what was the threshold that she had to get past?
The 5%.
She could easily get past that with a contract. Easily.
That's interesting. Well, I will ask her. But Troy, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sabby.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Troy Ellis. An interesting project there. Again, for those, if you came in a little bit later, I do want to show you that website is called We Are Thor. This is the We Are Thor movement. We can do it together. Join our revolution. So check that out when you get a chance. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.